Hello everyone and welcome back to Make the Music. In this video I'm going to be breaking down how I recreated the sound from Paramore's album Riot. I took the track That's What You Get. I completely recreated it from scratch and you can hear that in the playthrough there. I'm going to go inside my DAW and break down everything I did to recreate that track. It was definitely a song and an album that sort of reformatted and sort of revolutionized the pop punk sound. It's got an amazing drum sound, clear guitars, and of course amazing vocal performances that needed to be mixed with care. So I'm going to dive into my DAW and we're going to get into how I recreated the session. But before that, you should like and subscribe to the channel. This tells me, hey, I should make more content like this, and you can download my free guide, the Home Studio Gear Guide, which gives you a whole guide outlining everything you need for your home studio to get started making your own music. Anyways, let's get into the DAW and let's start breaking down this session. All right, so let's get into our session here for That's What You Get by Paramore. I thought I did a pretty good job with this one. You heard that playthrough. Let's go through all the tracks now. We're gonna also learn some lessons on mixing vocals that maybe weren't recorded in the best environment, so you're gonna wanna stay tuned for that. Let's go to the master track real quick here. Virtual mix rack using the 4K channel, a little shimmer and a little thickness on the master bus. EQ, master bus, the key really is about making subtle changes that help improve the mix, but it doesn't feel too heavy-handed to where I feel like the mix is being filtered through something. So I think that's really important. Doing some bus compression with the SSL compressor, limiting, then using ozone for a little matching and dynamics. Now let's get into the drum section here. I'm using Superior Drummer 3. The pop punk kit really fit like a glove on this track, just to be honest here. So for the kick, I'm using kick 5, the Lugwood stainless steel. And I really like this snare, I guess it'd be snare 5, the A&F raw brass. Sounds really good, and I used the pop punk preset here that they have included. It's got a nice ambience to it here. It just fits the genre perfectly. I don't know how else to explain it. But I'll go into the drum processing because there is a bit of drum processing in this track after I got the MIDI moved in here. So for the drums, using Virtual Mix Rack, the black channel, and the virtual channel here. Doing a subtle bit of compression, the mix knob though is at 10%. So it's a bit of parallel compression on the bus, you could say, and then the EQ is doing nothing. So that's what I have on the drum bus. Then for the kick, a little bit of EQ and a transient shaper. I felt like there was a little too much sustain on the kick and needed to feel like I had a little more attack without adding attack to the kick. Give that like thuddy low mid, that's kind of what I wanted to get rid of. Then for the snare track, added some high end. The snare is absolutely legendary on this album, kind of revolutionized the game a little bit, and I thought I got pretty close with it. Now the actual snare drum only has that processing because a lot of it's coming from the rooms actually. So if we go to the overhead, looks like just a bit of subtle notching there. And if I go to the compressed track, there's a lot of snare there. I'm doing a little bit of notching there as well. And then if I go to the ambient track, just a bit of subtle reverb there. So all those kind of come together to create this drum sound. All the processing just worked to kind of make it more exciting. Then there's a tambourine and hat sample actually on the chorus. If you listen real closely, those are there. They just have a bit of EQ to help them fit for the tambourine, and then for the hat sample, that's what we were working with there. So that's the whole drum sound. Felt pretty good to me. Let's go to the verse. Now let's get to the bass guitar track here. Let me unsolo the drums. So for the bass, I got 3 tracks. It's a pretty typical approach for me. So for the entire bus, I'm using Virtual Mix Rack here. And this is, I'm adding the virtual channel, added some lows with the big. This is not a very bass heavy track though, I must mention that. You need to kind of tuck it in to get to fit with the guitars. And I'm using the Pultec EQ, adding some lows and some highs there. Reaper stock EQ, taking out some muddiness there. I'm not a big fan of taking out tons of low mids, but it needed it in this case. And add some more sub information. The CLA 76. If you're not using this on your bass guitar, well, you need to for rock mixes. I particularly love his bass preset, and then the limiter, it really needs to be reeled in. You see that's not going crazy or anything. So there's a DI track. That's what it sounds like there. The amp track, which is going to add a lot of like mid-range punch. It's going to add some top end. I'm using, you can see here, a pretty standard amp. I usually use the Ampeg with the standard cab. I don't even know if I messed with the settings. It just kind of sounded good. Then I'm using a Sans Amp track. I'm using the Amplitude 5. Now I know the BAOD is a great free plugin. Pro Tools has a free plugin, but I use the Ampless bass driver, which is obviously a Sans Amp, in Amplitude. Kind of just giving me that Sans Amp feel. So with all three combined, we've got the attack of the DI, we've got the fuzziness of the Sans Amp, and we got the low of the amp track. And it really worked for me. So with the drums, it kind of comes together like this. A nice tight low end that is filling out the track here. Now let's get to the rhythm guitars. They sound like this. So let's talk about the guitar sound. I found a short on YouTube talking about how there was basically 3 different amps used and combined in this track. First, I want to talk about the EQ here. Taking out some lows, adding some of that 5, 8K range. Same thing with the mix hub. It needed some of that more 8K fuzziness, not like the abrasive 4K, but sort of that the brightness of the 8K sound, almost like a CLA sort of sound, and add some low mids in there as well. So if we take the EQ out, these are like the main rhythms. They sound a lot better there. Let's look at the Amplitude 5 patch though. That's really where the magic kind of happened here. What I heard is that there was like a Soldano track used, a Randall amp used, and then some sort of a Marshall sound. So I combined all 3. I messed with some cabinets here. I've got like a silver Marshall amp. I'm using a closed back amp here. And then I'm using the Dimebag Darrell expansion for the Randall, and it worked. It sounded good. I just kind of mixed them all until I got a sound I liked, and then a little bit of a drive pedal as well. This might not even be on. No, it is on. Just adding a little bit of gain there. That's what all the guitars have. So those are the main rhythms, and then the right and left tracks are playing the lead part. Especially in the intro too. I use some EQ to help them fill out a different part of the frequency spectrum. Then there's a center lead and octave. I'm not even sure if this is in the original. It just felt like it needed it. It's in there real low. If you'd like to listen to the finished stems, you should go to the description box down below. You can get the stems to this track 100% free of my mix and check it out. There's also some free guides there as well. So go to the description box, download that for free, and I'll get you those stems. Okay, so those were the rhythm guitars. There are some subtle cleans in the verse. One I have just like some subtle EQ and delay on it. Maybe it had like a phaser flangery sound, but I used the same amp settings. I just turned the drive down on all of them. But added some EQ, added some delay. Gives it kind of a room sound almost. And then the same thing on the left one as well. There's just some main EQ there, taking out lows, adding highs. Just adds a vibe to the verse. Well, I don't wanna be the blame, not anymore. It's your turn. So that's what's going on with the guitars there. Now let's get to the vocals. Now the vocals here was tracked in a less than ideal environment. I kind of dropped the ball with the vocalist, not making sure that we were set up in a non-echoey place. So what do you do when you've got vocals that were kind of recorded in a less than ideal environment? Well, there's kind of a process you can go through here. I'm going to explain it. It's going to be a lot of processing, but what I had to end up doing here is I had to end up adding a transient shaper to the vocal. And why did I add a transient shaper to the vocal? Well, if you track it in a room that's super echoey, but not in a good way, not like a good room sound, like an echoey, phasey room sound, what you want to do is get rid of the sustain from all the transients, because that's what's sort of echoing around. And I know there's plugins out there that can de-reverb things. What I recommend is taking the sustain down, adding some attack. That's what I did with the transient shaper. Let me take off all the plugins so I can kind of explain this to you as I go along here. So you can hear there's all that room sound. And the transient shaper's tightening it. It's not something I prefer to do. It's not something I want to do, but I had to do in this situation. Then I added Metatune, of course, a stereo limiter on the main vocal, and then a little bit of multiband to get rid of some of those harsh frequencies. I also did, you can see there's tons of volume automation moves on this main vocal to get every syllable to fit. It was just a situation where the mic was also a little too far away, so the dynamics got kind of out of whack. And so this is the vocal dry without any more of the processing. So what did I add? I added an EQ, took out some low resonating room frequencies. Then I came with virtual mix track. So I see I did all this pre-treatment to the vocal before bringing in the main stuff. The Neumann setting, the virtual channel, the 1073, add some brightness with the EQ and a distressor.
Well, I don't want to be the blame.
Then the CLA 76 to get it present.
That's what you get when you let your heart win. Whoa.
And of course, since I added the attack on that transient shaper, there's some really pokey syllables that come out, so I had to manage those with the compressor.
That's what you get when you let your heart win. Whoa.
Then I have a de-esser here, and then some additional multiband to get rid of some of those harsh, like 4K frequencies on the vocal. And then finally, on all the vocals, there's a bunch more processing here. So the lesson here is do it right on the way in. Don't do it like this, but when you have to, here's the process you go through. Took out some more low mids, then took out some really extreme highs, added them back in, added fresh air. You know when you're like an hour 3 of mixing, you're just like, screw it, and you're just throwing stuff on, trying to get stuff to work. That's what I was like here. And I think I got it to work, but I do not recommend this process. CLA 76 black because it's cleaner.
Whoa.
Multiband again, de-esser, limiting, more multibanding. Then I added the CLA Epic and Valhalla to add ambience to it. There's a clear delay in the verse, of course, of this song.
Well, I don't want to be the blame, not anymore. It's your turn to take a seat. We're settling the final score. Whoa.
But I feel like I finally got to a place I was okay with. There's some doubles that I have going on.
Why do we like to hurt so much?
They definitely help with the vocal sound. And then I've got some harmonies here.
Why do we like to hurt so much?
So all that combined sounds like this during the chorus part. Let me play it real quick for
That's
you.
what you get when you let your heart win. Whoa. That's what you get when you let your heart win. Whoa. I drowned out all my sense with this is
But overall, I thought the track really came together well. Let me know in a comment, how close did I get with this one? You can download, of course, the stems in the description box if you want to take a listen there. But if you have any requests for future tracks I should do, leave it in a comment down below and I'll take a look at those. Thank you for supporting the channel. You should like and subscribe to the channel. That tells me I should do more videos like this. Thank you so much for watching. I'm going to do a full playthrough of the track. And anyways, I will see you guys next time.
no, sir. Well, I don't want to be